Hi everyone. So on this video, I'm going to do three things. Number one, I'm going to help you understand the recent market fall. So the markets have corrected by roughly 14%. So is this a great buying point? So I'll help you understand by using technicals. Number two, I'm going to give you a fundamental commentary on why after budget, the markets are likely to recover. This is point number two. Point number three, there is a systemic issue in the Indian economy right now that FIIs are pulling money very, very aggressively. And if this trend continues, then you know what? We are going to suffer, right? So we will analyze this third topic as well. If you understand all these three sub points, then you will have a very clear understanding whether or not you should be putting more money, not putting more money. You'll get clarity around that. So let's begin. And topic number one is, so what is it with the current market fall? Let's do a very quick technical analysis. So this is where Nifty was at its peak and it has fallen by roughly 14%. Now this is a fairly healthy fall because usually hota kya hai ki typically a lot of falls like 10% falls are seen quite often, right? So between like 5 to 10%. This is a very normal thing that happens in a market. But between 10 to 20%, these falls are rare. In the last 3 years, this has happened by 4 times. And on an average, आप कह सकते हो कि ऐसा fall साल में एक बार होता है. So this happens usually on an average once a year. Now more than 20% falls, if we try to figure out, then this usually happens. The last time it happened was 2020. Before that, this was 2008. So this is where these two 20% plus falls had happened. Now can I do back testing and we try to do a very quick exercise here? कि see यहाँ पे आपको 14% fall दिख रहा है, okay? And let's do an analysis कि see if you buy Nifty 50 right now, what is like your downside, right? I mean, how much more will the Nifty 50 fall? So just say we discussed very quickly that, hey, the markets typically do not fall more than 20%. Why is that the case? I'll explain you in a minute. But let's just mark this point on this line. So this is like roughly another 6% fall. And if you aggregate this part A and part B, A plus B is equal to almost 20% fall. Okay, so this is the start of a bear market. Bear market means कि यार भाई मतलब अब तो प्रलय आ गई, right? 2020 type या 2008 type, 2000, right? When dot-com bubble burst had happened. So these were the phases when 20% plus market fall had happened, and these phases are called as bear run. So in technical terms, a fall of 20% or more is considered to be a bear run. If you buy in a bear run, almost no one has lost money provided you have not sold it. So even if you buy just before the bear run happens and you hold through the bear run, keep buying more, then you are going to make money. So let me back test this data with you, right? Because if you have money in the markets right now, itne like लोगों ने हल्ला मचाना शुरू कर दिया है. So understanding this point is going to be critical. So here is a quick exercise. So tell me the last time when the market corrected by more than 20%. So we will try to test this out. Okay. So of course यहाँ पे नहीं था, आप ये ऐसा मार्क करके देख सकते हो. This is like 3.5% fall and all that. यहाँ पे थोड़ा सा गिरा market. So let us just quickly plug this point and check कि ये कितना था. So this was like 6-7% fall. So here you can see that the market had corrected by 11%. And this was what? This was like November of 2022. फिर आता है अच्छा यार ये fall बहुत हो गया, right? So देखते हैं कि ये कितना था. So this was 18%, still not 20%. Okay. So the last fall actually which happened where market corrected by more than 20% was this. This was the COVID crash. Okay. So यहाँ पे market correct हुआ था and कितना correct हुआ था, right? So this was almost a 40% fall. Okay. So point to be noted is this phase. Okay. So this was an 18% correction fall. Okay. अभी market में कितना correction हो गया है? Right now the market correction is already 14%. So if we work with the theory कि you know what boss, bear run तो नहीं आएगी. Why? Because bear run usually if you go back to 2008, dot-com crisis, 2020, what type of events were these? These were global events. These were not India-specific events per se. Okay, so typically bear run नहीं आती है. आ गई, can I take guarantee, write it on a stamp paper and give it to you? I can't say that. But right now, looking at the macro economy, it's not as if a bear run is going to happen. It usually happens due to some uncertain circumstances for which we cannot plan. But these type of falls can happen and these are good buying opportunities. This is what I'll say. This is not a recommendation. आपने invest करना है, नहीं करना है, panic होना है, नहीं होना है, आपकी मर्जी. Whatever you feel like doing, you do. I'm just helping you understand the entire story with data. Okay, so this is point number one, and my quick summary point here would be kisi was I don't see the market falling by more than 20%. Here I'm talking about Nifty 50. I'm not talking about small cap, mid cap index. वो सब मैंने बहुत time पहले exit कर दिए थे, and I have informed it on my videos also, on my member community also, everywhere. Okay, and you can verify with people. Now comes the second related point here is kisi you have said that bear run is not going to happen. Why are you saying it? Can you give some logic behind it? Of course, right? So for example, bear run usually happens because there is some macroeconomic tectonic event. See, those uncertain things I cannot tell you, right? When next COVID like situation is going to happen, no one can predict it. But what we can think about is that, see, how is the world progressing, right? Are there like any kind of global events which will spark like a controversy where the markets could shake, right? So here it's good to do like a very quick analysis of the US market as well, right? So let's do S&P 500. So this is S&P 500 here. The sentiments are very bullish. Why? Because we are almost at our all-time high. This green line that you see, this is called as 150-day moving average. This depicts the last 150-day average price of the entire US market, which is S&P 500. This red line is called as 50-day moving average. And आप देख सकते हो कि unusually होता है technicals में कि see, this was the trend reversal, right? कि यहाँ से पहले bearish था this phase, right? And since here, right, from point A up until now, right, till the time the trend reversal does not happen, we can assume that this is a bullish phase for the market. The US market is still in a bull run. In case you guys are interested in learning more about US stock market, Indian stock market, then I would really recommend that you check out my courses. I teach everything end to end. If you're not willing to make that type of a commitment, it's completely cool. You can enhance your knowledge by absorbing daily posts that I make about the markets, right? And I teach things fundamentally. So you can join a member community and try it out for a couple of months and see the results for yourself. कि आपकी knowledge बढ़ी कि नहीं बढ़ी, and whether it is translating into action. So everything that I teach, because I'm a practitioner investor myself, I manage a fairly big portfolio. So whatever I am absorbing from the market, I churn it out in terms of knowledge. So you can consider joining all these forums. The details are presented in the description and comment box. Okay. So anyways, to cut the long story short here, see, the US market is still in a bull run. Trend reversal is not happening as of now, right? In the next like year or so, because the Trump rally seems to be winding down right now. So what is happening is that, see, investors had pulled out a lot of money from India around this point, and they had been aggressively investing in the US market. In fact, I had also been investing aggressively in the US market, right? Now, what will happen is that, see, the US market will become overvalued and the Indian market will become undervalued. Or maybe हो सकता है अभी हो गए हो Indian market undervalued. I don't know. Everyone can give their own perspective on valuations. So when do you think the FIIs are going to return? Well, they will definitely return when they see some kind of margins, right? कि उनका इंडिया में पैसा डाल के at least they are seeing 4-5% alpha compared to the US market. तब वो डालेंगे, वरना why unnecessarily they will put their money, right? That's a very basic thing about investing. That कभी कभी US market overvalued हो जाता है, कभी it becomes undervalued. Similarly, कभी कभी Indian market overvalued हो जाता है, फिर undervalued हो जाता है. So what is it that we should be doing? Well, we should be following the FIIs, right? If FIIs are buying like in the US market, we should also buy there. If FIIs are buying more in the Indian market, then we should also possibly consider that. But होता क्या है कि it's not as if that FIIs will send you an email कि you know what, Akshat, you know what, I'm going to buy like in the Indian market now. No, nothing of that sort is going to happen. By the time you realize that okay, they are going to buy the Indian market, बढ़ चुकी होती हैं चीज़ें, right? And then you will have no strength of buying it कि यार वो अब गिरेगा तो मैं करूँगा invest. Trust me, right? I have friends, right? I mean, who are still waiting for the markets to go to 7,500. Okay, so before COVID, the market was at 12,000. Then it fell to 8,000. And my friends are still waiting. अब तो तभी करेंगे invest जब 8,000 पे पहुंच जाएगा market. बैठे हुए हैं अभी भी, right? So the point I'm trying to tell you is that you need to be smart in terms of assessing what is going to happen in the next 6 months. Okay. So which brings me to the second part of this video, that okay, why do I feel that the Indian markets are poised for recovery? And again, very quick disclaimer, I do consider that the markets can fall by another 4-5% from this point. There is a very high chance of that happening. I'm not denying that. But the point is that you cannot be a maximalist. You cannot say that, you know, जब पूरी fall complete हो जाएगी, on that day, I'm going to buy everything and then I'm going to see a rally. So please rewind the video and just listen to the last 4 lines that I've said. This never happens. No one will be able to predict it. So then comes the natural question कि see, Indian market में 14% fall already हो चुका है. You are saying that the maximum fall would be somewhere around 18-19%. इससे ज़्यादा हो सकता है, but I'm trying to do prognosis. Now, of course, I can be off here, but I've explained you the logic why I am betting on this 18-19% fall, not like a 20% plus kind of a fall. So this is a critical point. Now let me help you understand systematically why Indian markets are likely to recover. Okay. So point number 1 is that our domestic consumption has been slowing down, right? Our GDP growth rate, the numbers came out, 5.4% growth rate tha. estimates have been brought down from like 7-8% growth rate to now 6.5% growth rate. So what is like exactly this growth rate that our economy, instead of growing at like 8%, it will now only grow at 6.5%? What is like the number one trigger for that? Well, it is a consumption problem. Right from companies like Hindustan Unilever, right from companies like Dabur, a bunch of good companies are saying, boss, you know what, India mein consumption itna zyada nahi ho raha, right? Right now, people are left with no money to buy anything. Now, why is that happening? Now, you'll say tax bahut zyada hai, right? And wo to dekho yaar, roz ka rona lag hi rehta hai, right? I mean, taxation are not going anywhere, okay? But to cut the long story short, the reason why consumption is slow is because the interest rates are high. They are still high. India has not cut the interest rate. In fact, India is one of the only major economy in the world which has not cut its interest rate yet. Okay, it is very given that India is going to cut the interest rates now. Inflation hoga. Okay, the government at some point now, with all the negativity that is emerging कि यार growth rate नहीं हो रहा, ये नहीं हो रहा, वो नहीं हो रहा, फलाना ढिंगा, stock market भी गिर गया, ये लोग तो बोलते थे कि stock market is never going to fall, this that stuff. Like now there is a lot of negativity. Okay, so what is a very likely scenario over the next 6 months, that interest rates are going to get cut, which means that the bottom will be made right just before interest rate cut. Okay, and that is where we are currently at. So therefore, I don't see a more than 4-5% fall. That's my estimate. Of course, I can be wrong. But the reason why the markets are going to rebound from this point is, number one, recipe is interest rate cut, because when interest rates are cut, what is going to happen is that the loan rates comes down, and आधे से ज़्यादा चीज़ें लोन पे खरीदी जाती हैं, EMI पे खरीदी जाती हैं, right? The banks are going to exhibit more lending. All that stuff is going to happen. So therefore, there is going to be a consumption revival. We are at the bottom of this consumption cycle. Very importantly, this kind of announcement usually happen during budget, right? So budget में ऐसा कुछ निकल के आ सकता है कि जिसकी वजह से there might be a focus on consumption revival. So this is point one. Point two is the FII problem, right? Foreign institutional investors have been selling at a crazy rate. Anyone telling you an opposite story is doing you a disservice कि यार FII के बेचने से फर्क नहीं पड़ता, बहुत फर्क पड़ता है. There are hosts of problems that come with FII selling. It's not like that. Now, what are FIIs and what is the goal of FII? FIIs are investors. What is the goal of investing? To increase your money. How would you increase your money? Very simple. By buying undervalued markets and selling in overvalued markets. So, Indian markets में जो growth आती है, that usually comes from small mid-cap companies, right? Those had become hyper expensive. वहाँ से बहुत सारा पैसा निकल गया. Why? Again, take a look at this. In the last 1.5-2 years, small caps have doubled. Okay, so भाई इतनी growth आई है तो of course correction might be there, right? So this is normal. So the point is that FIIs have considered the US market to be undervalued compared to the Indian market. Now, I'm not trying to paint a rosy picture कि इंडिया में कोई problem नहीं है. Of course, there are hosts of structural issues in India. Okay, but having said this, 60% of our economy is driven by consumption. Entire world wants to come and sell to Indians, right? That is there. Apple ले लो, आप Meta ले लो, इतनी दुनिया भर की पार्टनरशिप चल रही है Jio के साथ and Reliance के साथ वगैरह. Those are JVs, joint ventures, right? With foreign companies. Everyone wants to sell in India. India is a highly lucrative market because our domestic consumption, किसी भी item की आप demand ले लो, that is very high. Okay, so comes a natural question कि okay, when will FIIs return? Well, they will return when Indian markets becomes undervalued, right? So if the argument is that right now, after 14% fall, Indian markets have somewhat become undervalued, then they are going to come back. Okay, so it's not as if you हमेशा के लिए छोड़ दिया. Now then comes the natural question कि okay, what can happen in the budget to bring them back? Now I guess that the LTCG should be rationalized. Why? Because this is a structural problem that India is witnessing. Any sensible person will be able to run the math and get to a conclusion. Now, what is the meaning of LTCG rationalizing? See, if you go back 10-12 years ago, the LTCG was 0% on equities. Then it was jacked up to 10%. Then it went from last year 10 to 12.5%. There is a critical need of this rollback. I am really hoping कि इस तरीके का कुछ न्यूज़ आ जाए कि LTCG is going to be withdrawn because this is capital gains tax. Capital gains tax UAE में होता है 0. Okay, उनसे क्या चाहे होते हैं यार tax free है ये वो, right? Personal income tax में. Okay, what about Singapore? Singapore again the capital gains tax is 0. अब बोलोगे आप तो ख्याली बुलाव पका रहे हो, right? Yes, थोड़ी tax अभी कम होते हुए देखा है. See guys, here is the situation. Okay, so India is losing a lot of US dollar. Okay, now how are Indians losing US dollar? Because जब FIIs sell the Indian market, they are selling their stocks like ITC and all that in the Indian market. What are they doing, right? They are basically selling rupees, right? कि Indian market में बेच दिया, then they get like this money in rupees. they in a way convert this into dollar and take it to the US or whichever country they are from. So this is conversion of rupee into dollar whenever FIIs are selling, because they are not going to sell it and यहाँ पे उन्होंने flat खरीद लिए. No, nothing like that. So if they sell in the Indian stock market, they are going to sell in INR and then they are going to convert that and take it into a foreign currency. Now here is where our forex reserves are, right? So you can clearly see that our forex reserves in the last 2 years have been consistently falling. Okay. As a result, the INR is falling quite aggressively. And Juhi Chawla की memes बन गई हैं पता नहीं क्या क्या. So to cut the long story short, in order to preserve INR, or at least to not go haywire, right? Indian government really needs to think how to attract foreign capital, right? And now this situation has really blown out of hand, right? So I really hope that because of this issue, this LTCG relief might be given. This move is actually costing India more because for a foreigner, they are looking at their eventual return. So this cut in taxes is, I'll not use the word likely, but this is what a rational person should be doing. And I'm hoping कि यार इस तरीके का कुछ move आ जाएगा तो then there will be a massive spike in the stock market sentiment. That day itself you might see like a very good rally, right? अगर इस तरीके का कुछ होता है तो. Then comes a natural response and the third and final part of the video कि see boss, you are painting an optimistic picture, but I'm reading articles like these, right? So this is a Shankar Sharma's article and he has used some really harsh language. And basically if you read the article, there is one section which is very important and I am highlighting it here. You can go and just read this part. So what this section is saying is that see boss, in the 90s, early 2000s, what used to happen was that because FIIs have invested in the market, उनका पैसा लगा हुआ है. For example, 100 crores they have put, right? Hypothetically. And now if they want to withdraw, let's say 5 crores from the market, there was no counter buyer. Who would buy, right? Okay, fine. FIIs will sell, but you need like a buyer who would take it away from them, right? So they had to bring like or find other FIIs, right, to sell their equity. So this was a greater fool's theory, right? Because Indian markets were not deep enough. Now what is happening is, and this is somewhat correct, and here is the SIP flow that you will see. Over the last few years, a lot of money has started moving into SIPs. Crazy amount of money is going into SIPs. People are doing SIP after SIP. Even now, there is a lot of SIP money floating in the market. Why? Because all the other investment instruments have been rendered useless, right? For example, FD करा के कोई return नहीं बनना. EPF, PPF में कुछ नहीं return बनता, not even beating inflation. So where will you put money? Like equities, right? So therefore, people are pushing money into equities. So as a result, what has happened is, let's see, FIIs can now sell to Indians. So who is giving exit to foreign investors? Well, it is your SIP money. Is this part correct? Yes. Okay. But does it mean that this system is on a road to crash? Well, it depends. For example, if the Indian market is lucrative, then of course FIIs are going to come back. But if the Indian markets are not structurally lucrative, then of course this game is going to continue to happen. FIIs will continue to withdraw money, and one point can come where FIIs do lose trust on the Indian market. So on that note, I don't see that we are anywhere close to that equation right now. But what Shankar Sharma has said is partially correct. Ki see boss, genuine problem hai that retail investors, SIP money is giving exit to FIIs, yes, but he has painted a very negative picture. But if something is not done on LTCG, for example, HNIs, ultra high net worth individuals, FIIs, then you really need to start asking question that, hey, is Indian market even lucrative enough for you to make any sensible returns, right? Why am I saying it? Because if you go study the data in the last 10 years, the Indian market has underperformed the US market. I've done an entire video on this topic. This is the next video you could consider watching next. Also, I would like to remind you that in case you would like to build your fundamental knowledge in stock investing, learn technical analysis, fundamental analysis, stock analysis, then you can check out the links in the description and comment box and avail those resources. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.